Here we go. Radical Jack here, once again, day 28. And yeah, just a note, the camera's on my side here. Yeah, just in case anybody's ever wondering about that, I only see out of this eye, my left eye. My right eye, it's like I have a patch on it. I don't see anything out of it. There's a bit of color, a blur, that's about it. It doesn't focus. So yeah, I'm kind of looking in this line here. So just in case anybody's wondering if I had an operation on my eye. My eye was twisted when I was small, and they straightened it out, make it look as if it's working. And yeah, that's my eye. So I'm a one eye boy. In case you're ever wondering why I might be looking a bit not in the camera, or a little bit weird on the camera. Anyway, I said today was going to be confession day today, and yeah, it's been an interesting few days. I was doing really well. The 1 meal a day, was pretty much regular between the last time and the mashed potatoes. However long ago, it could have been 10 days, maybe a total of over 10 days, 12 days or something. So my poo was starting to become regular, and it was dry. A really good stool, a really good sign. And then hanging out with my daughter at the weekend and being around a lot of people, pizza, popcorn, and doing really well. And then I'd bought a loaf of bread for my daughter in the market, spelt and rye. And after I'd had my meal, I decided it was all right to have 2 slices of that with some coconut oil, And then I sneaked another 2, and that was all fine. And I was observing the feeling of that. And I remember that day that I did my my talk. I had the background of musical instruments in my friend's house and the harp. It was that day, and I remember looking back on it. I was feeling very shaky and very almost like that feeling of when I done something wrong, and would anybody notice and stuff like that. But really, it was great just to observe that whole thing, and see how it was affecting me as well, because it had affected me. Because what happened then later in the evening, because that was all still within the 1 hour, it's not on the menu, bread, and it was organic, spelt rye, whatever, but still, it's not on the menu. And I'd kind of stepped out of the fast for a split second, and then in the evening, because my daughter had left, there was some milk that I had frozen. It was raw milk. I couldn't stick it back in the freezer again, and so somehow or other I got my mind tricked me into feeling that it was all right to finish off those organic cornflakes, and so I did. And then that led to having some yogurt, because I just had some milk, and I thought, oh well, I might as well finish that yogurt too, and I threw some honey in there and some nuts, some Brazil nuts and tahini. So and then I observed the evening, and I thought, wow, that's interesting, because if that was smoking, alcohol or sugar, any of those other things, I'd have done the same thing in that kind of fall. It would have been like this downward spiral of keep this thing going, because once you're in, you feel like, oh well, I've done it now, I might as well have another smoke, or I might as well have another drink, and this is how we play with ourselves and trick ourselves into continuing something, that our body, or what's going on inside our body, hasn't quite got over. And so the next day I was back to normal, but because I'd suddenly totted up like the remaining 63 days, I thought, well, because I'd done that in that evening, which was Sunday, I thought, okay, I'll have a 3-day water fast, and then have 60 days of impeccability, and this is what I'm creating in my mind, And of course, the next day came, and I was like, no way was I going to do a 3-day water fast. I couldn't pull in that intention, you know, completely, and bring the will in, or whatever it would take to do that, you know, the strength. And so I battened it off, and I had my meal, and then because I'd had the tahini the day before, I decided it was all right to have some tahini with some chia seeds that had been soaking, you know. And then that became like a little bit of honey, and I threw a few raisins in there. So, and this is all within the 1 hour meal, and I thought, oh, well, that's okay, you know. And then, and that leads me to today, where because I'd had these bad 2 days, whatever you want to call it, you know, in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, today will be the last day, and I'll have my 60 days of impeccability. I defrosted what I thought was a soup, and I thought, oh, well, I'll have this, and that'll be it, you know, like this kind of celebratory thing, you know, 3 days of fall, and then I'll have my impeccability. And of course, as it happens, it wasn't soup; it was lamb. So there was this big kind of debate in myself as to whether, you know, no, I'm not going to eat that, you know, I'm not going to put meat in my system. And then I thought, well, you did dairy, you might as well do meat, you know. So there's this kind of like consciousness and battle here in myself, you know, and I decided to have it, you know. So I had it, and then I'd been soaking chia seeds because, as you might have, I might have said it already, I'm not sure, but I've been watching a lot of stuff, just a couple of things that it's very interesting how certain things end up on my feed, my YouTube feed, you know, of things to watch. That might have been in relation to something else, you know, intermittent fasting or something. So anyway, this guy, Stephen Gundrick, comes up, you know, and it's at best, you know, it's hard to listen to this American twang sometimes. It can be quite annoying for me anyway. And you know, and then I'm like, okay, I'm 20 minutes in, and it's constantly pushing forward the what I really want to hear, the things that I think he's going to say about certain things, like the legumes and beans in general, you know, and lectin is well worth looking into this, you know, because I've watched a few things now, because I even watched a couple of things who people debunking this, you know, because you know, I've had beans for, like, you know, almost 4 weeks, and you know, I've had a pretty good stool on that, you know, in relation to the kale and the quinoa, you know. And these have been chosen because of the various research that I'd done, and the things that other people have fasted on. And so ultimately, you know, so as that I don't lose any energy as well, I can continue to operate, and I'm still getting the benefits of the 23-hour-a-day fast. And so he's carrying on, and I knew it. And of course, it happened at the end. It is like, yeah, he's selling prebiotics. Now, you probably know about probiotics. Probiotics is like what people would throw into them, like, you know, after having antibiotics, which kills all the good bacteria. So the probiotics are supposed to throw in the good bacteria. So basically what he's saying is that the probiotics never actually make it to your stomach. They can't make it past the acid, as good as they might be, etc., you know. But so, of course, this is the introduction of prebiotics, you know. And of course, he's speaking all the right language, like a good salesman and stuff like that. But, you know, I've got to give this man credit. You know, he's done 10,000 operations on the heart. You know, he's a professor and teacher. You know, he's got good credentials. You know, but he's written some books, and of course, you know, it's hard to not judge, you know, when somebody's promoting their books and this, that, and the other, because, you know. And you know, the way that Americans do things sometimes, it can be quite annoying, you know, and you just think, well, this is all about making money, isn't it? So anyway, the BN and all of it is like, you know, there's definitely something going on with the lectins, because I've noticed it myself. And of course, the nuts, when I had my last fall on the mashed potatoes, was cashew nuts. I had thrown some cashew nuts into me, and in fact, cashew nuts are not nuts. They're actually a bean. They're in the bean family, and the same with peanuts. Peanuts are underground, and so as well as beans, they're what's high in lectin is also tomatoes and peppers and you know, eggplant, you know, like aubergine and stuff. So I mean, one of the ways to get by that is cutting out the seeds and peeling the skin, you know, and pressure cooking the beans, you know. So I mean, this is one of the worst things, the worst case of diarrhea and various other things that can happen, you know. Food poisoning or whatever, is undercooked beans. So this is something I already knew, you know, and I had a few occasions where I didn't, I felt quite sickly and cloudy in the head, you know, and I wondered, you know, was it undercooked beans? You know, and he's suggesting as well that if you're going to soak beans or lentils and that, to throw the water out at least 3 times. This helps to get rid of lots of the lectin, you know. So that's if you're going to go do those things. And of course, I'm fasting now, so I'm kind of thinking, well, I don't really want to have to deal with any kind of lectins if that's the case. So I cut them out altogether, you know. As he said, you know, it's like, well, you know, I'd just like to see people cut them out completely. But if you're going to do them, pressure cooker them, make sure that they're cooked, and on you go, you know. And when it comes to the peppers and anything that's in the nightshade, you know, and potatoes is in that group as well. So, you know, all these kind of things over the years about, you know, potato skins and don't peel the potatoes, you know. I mean, I obviously when I get organic stuff, I usually leave the skin on because they say a lot of the goodness is under the skin, like carrots, you know. But again, you know, then you move into other places where people have studied this thing, you know, and they say carrots is acidic. It's 2 vegetables put together in a laboratory and the chemical binding, the quinanilase, yam, wild yarrow, and yam. That is what a carrot is, you know. And you'll see that with the carrot when you see the green coming up out of the top. It is very much like the yarrow, from the yarrow family. So, you know, they also say when these 2 things are not from the same family, then, you know, it's not a correct thing to do. And what happens is the food itself loses electricity. This is according to Dr. Sebby. Check out Dr. Sebby. He's done a lot of things in relation to fasting and cured all sorts of ailments over the years. Well worth a look at, you know. But he's speaking from the Black African, or on behalf of their particular DNA, which rightfully so, you know. A lot of the food that was introduced to Africa they didn't have, and a lot of the sicknesses they have is because of the foreign foods. And so, you know, how long have we been eating grains and legumes and beans and so on, you know, in relation to, this is something that I want to look at. First of all, we have to find out where's the Irish from. You know, how long have we been here, you know, and the evolution of things as well. And what would be, if we were going to eat grains, to be the correct grain on this land, you know, or at least in Europe, you know, because also spuds, potatoes, they're not around that long either. And so, you know, a lot of the food, you know, is there any such thing as a Native American in relation to, as he was saying, you know, it seems that the Native Americans themselves made their way across from Asia. And this is possible, you know. So, well, looking at this whole food thing, it can be really complicated, you know. But definitely, check out this Stephen Gundrick, you know, because I mean, although he is selling this idea of prebiotics, whilst they could be really good for somebody who's got serious ailments and stuff like that, maybe John St. Julian would disagree, you know, in relation to his extreme fasting and stuff like that in order to cure any ailment. You know, is that because what we're talking about here is gut bacteria, you know, and you know, it's definitely something to look into, you know, and I would say that fasting would probably starve out just pretty much all the bad bacteria, and would probably be the cheapest way, if you like, to deal with this kind of scenario, you know. So also by getting rid of all this bad bacteria, you know, you're most likely going to curb all your you know, your addictions, you know, and your wants to your desire to eat these kinds of foods, you know. You know, because definitely, you know, there's this thing going on. It's almost like a demonic entity, you know, that's like eat me, and you know, these things apparently can actually communicate with your brain and make you want these things and go and get these things, you know, on behalf of them, you know. I mean, a lot of this is common sense. So, you know, I've been having a really commonsensical thing around a lot of things when I started to get confirmation. And so, yeah, I'm not giving myself a hard time in relation to, you know, the last 2 or 3 days. It is what it is. It's all part of the fast and the 88 days kind of journey, you know. And you know, I aim for absolute impeccability for the next 60 days. It's my birthday tomorrow, so I'm going to fast on my birthday. do the opposite to what most people do and eat loads of cake and stuff like that. Time is up. Blessed be.